the world go around, the world go around, the world go around. Money makes the world go around, it makes the world go round.
Good evening, I'm Shylock Pound of Flesh, your host here on the 595 Club. It's been a good week for us. Interest rates have continued to rise, and we managed to blame that little problem in the silver market on Bunky Hunt. We've got a great show for you tonight. I want to get right to our guests, but first I want to take time out and thank all of you who wrote in about our musical guests last week, Gladys Knight and the Preps. We hope to have Gladys and the Preps here again tonight to do their chart buster, Midnight Train to Hudson's. Unfortunately, there was a big pre-fire sale in the Garment District, and they couldn't make it. They'll be here at some time in the future. Right now, with no further delay, I'd like to get right to our guests. First, I'd like to introduce the noted Jewish sex researcher, Kinsey Manischewitz. Would you welcome him, please? Mr. Manischewitz.
Please, call me Kinsey.
Oh, all right then, Kinsey. What's the difference, Kinsey, between the sort of work Doctors Masters and Johnson do and the work that you do?
Well, as you know, Jewish sex is very different from Gentile sex.
Actually, I wasn't aware of that.
Well, yes. You see, there are certain common sexual perversions, like the nose job, that are unique to the Jews.
Wait a minute, isn't a nose job a surgical operation?
Well, it's a delicate operation, yes, but no, I wouldn't call it surgical.
Doctor, perhaps you could give us a better idea of the sort of work you do if you could tell us about an actual case you've been involved with.
I never get involved with my patients. I did it once when I was an intern, and it was terrible. Never mix business with pleasure. That's my motto.
Now, Doctor, perhaps you misunderstand me. I mean, if you could tell us about a case history of a patient you've treated.
Oh, certainly. Well, very recently, I treated a woman who had a severe sexual hang-up. She was unable, try as her husband might, to elicit that most... Let me try that again. Try as her husband might, she was unable to have that most essential of female responses.
Orgasm.
No, guilt.
Guilt?
Yes, you must remember we're talking about a Jewish woman. She climaxes with a guilt trip. You see, unless she feels guilty, she can never feel fulfilled.
Well, what did you do to help that woman?
Conventional treatment was unsuccessful. We tried peer group counseling. We tried a number of things, all to no avail. Finally, we were able to make her realize that when she had sex, it meant she was neglecting her children. Now, whenever she has sex, she fears her son won't grow up to be a doctor.
Were you successful with that approach?
Oh, yes, indeed. Now, if she so much as kisses her husband, she's compelled to rush to the phone and call her mother or her old college roommate and tell them how rotten she feels.
Well, that's a heartening story, Dr. Manischewitz. I hope our listeners out there will feel good about coming to you if they have any problems. Right now, I myself have a little problem. A message from our sponsor. You know, if you're watching television at this time of night, your marriage license probably isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Men, does your wife look more like Bo Schembechler than Bo Derek? And women, does your husband lack the decency to at least roll over before nodding off? Scheistergana, Finagle, and Swindle, the lawyers over at Creative Barratry, have a message for you. It's a once-in-a-lifetime legal clinic special. Honestly, at prices like this, you can't afford not to get a divorce. Sure, you're happy now, but nothing's forever, and prices will never be this low again. You can be divorced for only $100 if no children are involved. Of course, if a child is involved, for God's sake, don't bring her to court with you. If your children are involved, there's no need to tell them. They probably won't notice the way your home is these days. And even if they do, they'll probably believe that Daddy's just gone away on a business trip. Forever. If you do tell them, it'll just give them an excuse to do poorly in school or get into leather. If your children aren't involved, our Tijuana office can supply them at reasonable rates. Or maybe it's all the kids' fault that your marriage has turned into crabgrass on the lawn of love. For $23.50, we can arrange to have official-looking adoption papers in your child's name sent to your home with a slight but legally significant defect. Guaranteed to have those kids so afraid of being sent away that you won't hear from them unless they're on fire. Can't handle divorce now, you say? Well, you can get a separate maintenance decree for $50. And that's less than 2 nights at the local no-tell-motel. For those who've been passing as Catholics since the Inquisition, we're dispensing annulments for only $250, and that's less than your local parish probably charges for a month's worth of candles. Of course, if you really believe those vows you took way back when, Our Sicilian, our New Jersey office, will be glad to make you a widower for $50,000 plus expenses. But there's no reason you shouldn't take advantage of the bargains we're offering during the sale. Now, we recognize a creative barratry that some of you may have gotten yourself deeply into ethics. We can consolidate those obligations of conscience and give you a fresh start. For this week only, you can declare a moral bankruptcy for only $75. Just think of the times you wanted to stomp all over one of those pesky little squirrels but had second thoughts. Trust me, after a moral bankruptcy is declared, you won't even have first thoughts. Stop denying yourself the joy of usury. Today's prime rate would have had you tossed out of the temple 2,000 years ago. Why should every loan be a gift? With moral bankruptcy, you'll have no qualms about cheating your business partner. So what if he's married to your sister? Come on down now to the creative barratry for a divorce and a moral bankruptcy. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce a very special woman here on the 595 Club. You might remember our Hanukkah special, live from the Bloomingdale's cosmetics counter last December. We met a lovely Gentile girl who'd gotten lost and thought she was at Bonwit Tellers. Well, as testimony to the miracle of faith, we have her back here tonight. I'm sure you'll want to give a warm welcome to Susie Shiksa.
Thanks, Charlotte. It's nice to see you again, too.
Actually, Susie, I have to admit that when I first saw you backstage tonight, I didn't even recognize you.
I understand.
You know, maybe some of our viewers weren't watching that night in December, and for their edification, and also to refresh everyone's memory, we have a picture that was taken of you just 4 short months ago. If we could show that now, please, on the monitors. I can't believe it, Susie. That was, when, 4 months ago, right?
That's true. That was 4 months ago.
You know, Susie, I remember that night, and I asked our entire viewing congregation to pray for you, and now seeing you here today, it certainly looks as if our prayers have more than been answered. Now, when we met in December, you couldn't even get a mobile charge card, isn't that right?
That's true, but things have certainly gotten better on that account. I've just applied for my own American Express Gold Plate, and, well, of course, I'm a signatory on more than a few carte blanches.
Well, I'm glad you're getting the credit you so richly deserve. Maybe our audience, Susie, doesn't appreciate how horrible the life was that you've been able to escape from.
Yes, well, I was a typical Gentile child. My mother drank to excess, and my father beat me. That is, on those few occasions that he wasn't home. I couldn't have my ears pierced until I was 16, and, well, I couldn't even own a shirt with an alligator on it.
Oh, Susie, that's a sad story, and I'm glad you've been able to put those days behind you. Is there one change, just one change, you could point out as being the most significant in your recent transformation?
That's easy, Shylock. The best part about acting like a Jewish woman is not being pestered by Jewish men. I mean, there just must be a factory where they make Jewish kids because, well, I just couldn't see lowering myself to any of those guys. I would just die if I knew that Diane, Lisa, or Rachel had gotten mixed up with one of those Nevishes.
Why don't we cut to our musical guest now, Warren Goldenberg.